Hello, listeners, and welcome to One Mission Podcast. And today we have a very learned and astute guest, Don Barger, who's with the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention. And now he has a unique title, Director of Innovation and Artificial Intelligence. It's always good to talk about innovation, but today we're going to be talking with him specifically about artificial intelligence and how it can be used in ministry. Don, welcome to One Mission Podcast.
Well, it's great to be here. Great to join you.
And tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to know Christ and how you have come to where you are and a strategic place of service there at the International Mission Board.
Yeah, so I grew up in Alabama, in Hueytown, Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Went to Hueytown Baptist Church. Yeah, very few people know that now, I guess. But yeah, I live right down the street from one of the race car people, and spent my younger years there in Alabama. Went to UAB, have a degree in accounting, and just was planning. I had a track set out for my life. I never really asked God what his plans were for that. And then one day he kind of woke me up to, hey, maybe my plans are not for you to become a lawyer. We've got enough of those. Maybe we have God has other plans for my life. And so just before I graduated at UAB, I had a shift in thoughts and shifting calling, I guess, for my life. And went to seminary, went to Southwestern, did a MDiv there. And while I was there, felt the Lord calling me into missions. And we spent many years overseas. I've been with the IMB now 27, going on 28 years, and served in Latin America in a variety of roles, from church planting to leading our strategies amongst indigenous, non-Spanish speaking people groups. And then for about a decade, I was the trainer for Latin America. And so I've lived several places in Latin America, had many different roles. And then for the last few years, or last, I guess, 3.5 years, lived here in Richmond as part of our global engagement home office staff.
Well, Don, I want to say this to the listeners, I enjoyed hearing you last year at the International Learning Center. My wife and I were there with some of my colleagues, and you had a featured place in the program to talk about artificial intelligence, and you've become quite experienced and learned in it, and reflection of what you're trying to do in ministry at the International Mission Board. But you also did a broader context of ministry, and I'd like for us to talk about, first of all, for the listeners who maybe like me, who are struggling to understand artificial intelligence, what it is, the implications of it, the usages of it. Can you just begin very basically and tell us what artificial intelligence really is? And by the way, 24 years ago, I saw the movie Artificial Intelligence.
Well, so it's a little different than that.
It is different from that.
I would say that, so you may look at my background is not your typical path to getting into this. So I have an accounting degree, an MDiv, and a PhD in theology and missions with a specialty in orality and Bible storying. So that's not the normal path to getting to AI. But a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, I went to a conference on missional AI, and I left that conference with a few things. One, I felt like I was the dumbest person in the room. Everybody else in there was just brilliant.
I had that feeling.
And I also felt like I really want to learn more about this. This was before OpenAI released ChatGPT. This was a few years ago. Coming out of that, I realized this has huge ramifications for everything from factory work to missions. And so we need to be thinking not only about the ethical implications of using AI, but how can we use AI? Much like when the printing press came out, it had enormous impact on churches in the whole world. And I really think that the AI is having that similar impact and will continue to do so. You asked, what is AI? AI is basically the most simple definition is getting computers to do things that we've traditionally had humans do.
Right.
I mean, it could be everything from making a cup of coffee for you to doing high-level translation work. So there's all sorts of things in between. AI is really getting a really good prediction of what comes next. If you want to like break down what happens in AI, is that you train these models of the probability of what is going to take place next or what word should come next, and it's just really good at building those out. That's a really high level simplified definition. People in data science and physics would probably not be happy with my definition, but it is getting computers to do something that a human would normally do.
Well, I don't know about the esoteric field of those in science, but for those of us who are kind of going to be basic users and trying to adapt this in ministry and use it, I think it was an excellent definition. Let's segue now. At the International Mission Board, what are you doing with AI to help enhance the missional effectiveness of the work there?
There's a lot, and it goes from everything from how to do translations well,
Yeah.
and it goes now we're not taking a language that doesn't have the Bible and just dropping in that language and out comes a Bible translation the next day, but it is being used by a lot of other ministries, by a lot of Bible translation orgs that we partner with to accelerate that process. And normally, a New Testament can take 20 years to do in
Right.
a new
Yeah.
language. And there's some models out there right now that are being tested and used that speeds that process up to where you can get a whole Bible in 4 years. There's a lot of human in the loop, humans testing, humans doing, but the drafting, which is usually taking many, many years, can be done very rapidly, even in low resource languages. So that's like one explanation, one example, and I could go into great details of the checks and balances that are involved in that. But then there's just I literally just sat down before we get on this podcast, with someone helping them write better job descriptions using
Oh, yeah.
just totally not a missional application, except for the fact that it frees up time that you would normally be spending. We don't typically like sitting around writing job descriptions, and it could take you a lot of time to do it. So how do you clean up those job descriptions? One of the really innovative ways we're using it in digital engagement. So one of our strategies, about a fourth of our teams have a intentional digital strategy to engage the people where they're working. And sometimes it's even in places where we can't physically be. And so we will engage them on social media. And then as they reply, AI can help us either with translation, but also with routing. Is this somebody just sending hate messages or sending foul stuff or pornography or something to us? If so, then the AI can just kind of respond to them, politely respond, as a Christian AI bot. We're not involved in, thank you for sending this, but we're not interested, and then can suggest something. So what you can do is you could take, if you had 30,000 people writing, if we could screen out like a triage of what's coming in that's really not going to lead to a gospel conversation, and then send only those ones that are truly wanting to have that conversation, we could send those to the humans. But there's so many ways we're using it to help in summarizing meetings, or summarizing as you are sharing with someone. You can do some analytics on the back end of after that share to track trends and different things. So yeah, lots of ways. Here's another one. Like, one of the things we're building out right now is, if you're learning another language, you can drop a recording of your conversation with someone in there, and it can evaluate where you are in the language and give you some suggestions on how to improve in the language.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, segueing a little bit to the local church, and more particularly the pastor or ministers on staff, how may they make more amplified use of artificial intelligence?
So I'll tell you what not to do. So don't just take your idea for a sermon and drop it in and say, write me a sermon for that. That is not going to be something we will be teaching you how to do at our upcoming conference on AI. But what you can do is you can help define. So I talked about digital engagement. If you are in Birmingham, Alabama, or Huntsville, or Montgomery, or somewhere, and you're wanting to reach out to a certain segment of society, you can actually have the AI take on the persona of your target. And so you could throw something to that persona to try to figure out what it is that I like to say keeps people up at night. So if you're running, let's say you're running a digital engagement strategy in Birmingham and you're wanting to reach out to young mothers who are in that community. Maybe you're starting a new Bible study for young mothers. Then you could use the AI to help identify topics that would be something that would draw them in. I mean, you could also sit down with young mothers to confirm that, but like, you could get some ideas. You could throw in, something I did, something I did not long ago is I took our pastor's sermon and I evaluated it after the fact for, was this a good sermon? Did he try not to be too explicit here, but was it a biblically based good sermon? And I'm happy to say that his sermon did come back very, very well. I also took a very popular prosperity gospel pastor, his same Sunday, I dropped his sermon in and it came back and evaluated, and it gave all sorts of reasons why it was not a very good sermon. So if you're a pastor and you're wanting to say, am I clearly communicating, or here was my goal for this sermon. This was what I was hoping to accomplish. And is the sermon told in such a way, or am I sharing in such a way that is clearly communicating that? So you could do it for that.
Well, we're not going to ask you what the name of your church is or the name of your pastor because we want to protect him, although you gave him a good review.
He's great. I wrote him and said, hey, good news. The AI said that you did a great job. So
Yeah.
I'll also say another one is like doing just research. Like
Right.
we've created something called faithbot.io. So it's just faithbot.io. You can go there and you can put in a topic, or you can ask a question about a certain verse, and it can give you all sorts of background and information about that. So in doing research for your sermons, much like you would use a Bible software program that helps you get background information for something you don't know, you could use that as well. And yeah, we've been very pleased with the results that we get.
Tell our listeners faithbot.io. Is that
IO, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you guys have developed that, right?
Yeah, and so we're using a large language model that's out there on the market, and then we've kind of fine-tuned that model specifically to respond as a believer or a Christ follower would, and particularly a Baptist would respond. And so it's really good. Now, I will say, I just have to give the caveat, like with anything AI, don't just assume you always check the sources and check to make sure that everything is right. Just like if you had a really good college intern that you had asked to help you with something, you wouldn't just run with it without checking to make sure that your college intern had all the facts straight. But I find it very helpful. And a few weeks ago, I'd taken it down on a Saturday morning to do some updates, and I had 3 text messages in about an hour from pastors and Sunday school leaders who were saying, I'm working on my thing for tomorrow, and your AI is down. So
Yeah.
I know that people are using it.
Well, when you compare AI to a college intern, you may have hurt AI's feelings. I hope not.
Yeah, in some ways, it's a good comparison because I think
Okay.
that a college intern is usually really, really enthusiastic and
Right.
sometimes very confident in what it says, but it's not always right. And I would say the AI is the same thing. I would always encourage you to check the sources and to make sure that everything that it's saying is accurate.
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit about the concerns that people may have about the usage of AI. Number one, there's a fear of it, and we have to dispel that. And then it's always an opportunity for anything to be used for the bad or evil or for really bad purposes. So talk a little bit about that so we could better comprehend what we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting topic as we look at um, I think you said it well. Like anything that can be used for good, Satan is going to be using for evil as well, and
Right.
distort the truth and distort the good uses. I, there's a pretty large market for developing AI companions, if you will, that are it's a bizarre market to me, but there's a lot of people who are seeking companionship from AI. And I would say that's
Yeah.
probably, I will say it's not probably, it is not where we should be doing that.
Very unhealthy. Yeah.
It is not healthy at all. And so we're wanting, we affirm even in our digital engagement strategies, we're trying to get offline, spend time with people. But if I'm able to take a city of 1 million and find the 200 people who are interested in having gospel conversations, I'm going to go to those 200 rather than just randomly knocking on doors. So that's a lot of how we're using it, is to kind of narrow that funnel down. But on the other side of, you will see that if anything that you've seen online, or before it was online, it was in print, that could be poorly used by Satan, it's the same. Porn, addiction, different things. So I would say that using it in a way that people are using it to replace humans in the relational side, that is not where we should be doing it.
Right.
Plagiarism, taking credit for stuff that you did not do, it's a big problem. It's a
Yes.
big problem. I saw a sermon that was totally done by AI, where the AI had created the sermon and then preached it to a congregation. That is certainly removing the role of the Holy Spirit and
Right.
discernment of the human. So I would uh, say that those are not things that we should be doing.
Well, it's a
It,
tool.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tool. I
Yeah.
will say that one of the challenges that we will be facing in the next 2 to 5 years is, just as every innovation displaces work, I think you will see, uh, like now, you don't go to the library and pull microfiche to go look at old articles. You just get online and everything you want is online. So there's not this market for the people managing the microfiche. I think that this, as we look at AI, you will see lots of work being displaced. And so as pastors, one of the things we're going to deal with is, how do we help people in our congregations who find that all of a sudden their manual job that's now being done by a robot.
Yeah.
And that's been happening over the last 20 years, but I think that is going to be accelerated much quicker with the advent of AI.
That'll be exponential for sure. My wife and I were at the Cove last month, and the presenter, whose name it was an unpronounceable name, a big long Slavic name, but anyway, he did an excellent job on AI for the basic surface kind of understanding. And what he opened up in his comments, he said, "Now I'm a software engineer and I am working my way out of my job by using AI." And he went on to describe the displacement that you're talking about right
Yeah, yeah.
there. And we're on the front end of that, but there'll always, of course, be human elements and everything. But I know people fear that. That's one of the fears, too. And being a person who studies military history, I think AI it already is, going to be a major
Totally.
tool in the arsenal of warfare and prevention of warfare. So that's an area in and of itself. And then in economics, the whole thing of how money is used, it's really unexplored territory that we're on the front end of.
If I
Yeah.
can just piggyback on that to say that a software engineer who uses AI is probably not in the danger of all of a sudden being replaced tomorrow.
Oh, he was kidding.
But no, but I do think
No.
that all roles like software engineering or something that
Right.
just refuses to use it, those are the roles that even a creative type, I think those are things that are feeling very threatened. Writing and video editing and photo editing, even acting and creating movies. I think that those who just absolutely bury their head in the sand and say, I don't want any part of that, those are the people that are more in danger than people in those industries
Right.
who say, yeah, I want to edit the photo and I'm going to use AI to help me do that. I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for that. But
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, and actors are very concerned about name, image, and likeness,
Yeah.
all of that being true. You and I don't have to worry about that, but they do. And
Not at all.
let me talk just a moment about we had this conference you referred to earlier on AI and ministry or in ministry on May 8th at Taylor Road Baptist Church right here in the Montgomery area. And we're looking forward to having you. You want to tease that out just a little bit? I know you
Yeah.
about some of the things you're talking about here, but maybe drilling it deeply, of course, more deeply.
Yeah, so we're gonna look at AI, and I want people who are all excited about AI, and I also want people who are saying, I don't want any part of this, I'm afraid of it. Because we're gonna break it all down and we're going to look at it from different perspectives. And I want to show some tools. Like one of the tools that we've recently introduced at our church is a tool that as someone is speaking or is preaching, the sermon is instantly translated into, in our case, 4 different languages right now. And so we have people coming to our church that maybe speak a little English, but they're not getting 100%. And so they're able to see the subtitles of what's being said instantly on their phones or on the screen if we wanted. We do the same thing at our own training center here as we train people. So we'll look at some of that type of technology. So there may be pastors who are thinking, hey, I wouldn't mind having a solution for people who are coming and they maybe don't speak English as well. So it could open up some opportunities, and then we'll just open up some AI tools, and I'll help with prompting. How would you create a prompt to help you evaluate an email you're about to send out to your congregation, or write a newsletter, a news article, and you're going to update the church on some things. So like, how do you use AI to say things more succinctly using great grammar? I know that most people have wonderful grammar. I love having some AI to go back behind me and say things better. So there's just lots of opportunities. We'll explore how do you use it, and are there ways you can use AI in your sermon preparation or long-term planning? And so those are things that we'll be looking at, and then we'll have a time at the end if we don't cover something that you really want to be covered, then we'll take a stab at it.
Well, and we don't have time to delve into this, but in the whole arena of book publishing, I can
Oh my
imagine
goodness.
that is going to be enormous.
So I wrote a book last year
Oh,
uh,
okay.
with Grant Lovejoy. It's
Oh,
called Unreadable, another book you probably won't read. And it's about how people get information that shapes who they are and what they believe. So it's worldview, looking globally at how
yeah,
people.
hold that up one more time to the camera.
Yeah. So this is the pre-version that came out. So there's
Uh,
this thing that comes
yeah,
across, but it's called Unreadable. Now, the premise of the book is we're not saying that people can't read. We're saying that people, based upon our research of over 250 interviews globally in major cities, how people get information is more and more audio and more video. So they may watch a YouTube video.
that's
I,
right.
when I was little, when I was growing up, I had my first car and I had to work on it, and I had a Chilton's manual that I would go to. I got to change the starter. Now I go straight to YouTube and I try to figure out how to do stuff. And that's how most of us get information. It's how college students get information. They go
Yeah.
watch video. So the premise of the book is that. So then we wrote this book, which is ironic. We wrote a book about people not reading. So I wanted to get an audio version of the book. And so a few weeks ago, I'd given up. I tried to record it and it's just taking too long. And a few weeks ago on a weekend, I decided to use AI, and I cloned my voice and I created the entire book as an audio
Oh,
book. And it took me about an hour and a half to do the
wow.
entire audio book, published it, and it's on Audible. And it sounds like me, but I never said any of those words. So that's kind of I don't know, I got us on a tangent there, but
No, I think
we'll
that's
look at that type of stuff. Like, how do you use AI to do that kind of thing that would have taken me weeks and weeks or months to do in a Saturday afternoon?
wonderful. So not only have you published a book, but now you are on Audible. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Don, it's been real good to talk to you, and we're looking forward to May 8 when you'll be with us here in the Montgomery area at Taylor
Yeah.
Road Baptist Church, and we'll look forward to that and talk to you further. But before we go, we always like to ask our guest how we can pray for you, because when it comes down to it, we're not going to replace prayer with AI.
No, we will not. We will not be doing that.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, some good prayer requests would be for our family. So we have 4 children.
Oh, okay.
One is in Birmingham, but about to move back to Auburn, and then one in Waco, Texas, and with our grandchild, our
Okay.
daughters there, and our son is in pharmacy school in Mississippi, and our youngest daughter. So we're about to be empty nesters. So our youngest daughter is going to Mississippi State this fall.
Okay.
I would just say, yeah, I'd ask you to pray for our family with lots of transitions,
Yeah.
moves. And so Jennifer and I will be empty nesters here in Richmond. So that would be wonderful. Would love to have you be honored to have people pray for our family as they're in different stages of transition in life.
Well, this has been a delightful conversation, and we're very glad that you could be with us. We look forward to our time together on May 8th at Taylor Road Baptist Church in Montgomery. Well, listeners, this is again another edition of One Mission Podcast, and we look forward to the future to have other guests sharing from their field of service, from their areas of ministry. God bless.